I want to take you to what I am convinced is a says-it-all passage. I will never forget the day that I read this passage and saw it for the first time. Do you ever have that with Scripture? You've read these passages 100 times, and you go by things, and all of a sudden, one day, this jumps off the page at you. Some of you are smiling. You've had that experience. Well, that was that experience for me. And I thought, where have I been? How could this be so clear and I've missed it? This is Ephesians 4:28. Now let me talk to you about Ephesians. Paul has very carefully laid out the gospel in chapters 1, 2, and 3. He's established a gospel foundation for people's living. And what he's doing in 4, 5, and 6, chapters 4, 5, and 6, is now applying that gospel to about all kinds of things of everyday life, to your money, and to communication, and to marriage, and to parenting, and the church, and it's just incredibly comprehensive. In the middle of that application of the gospel, you have these words. Let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor. Now, I'm reading along. Let the guy who was a thief no longer be a thief, but let him work a real job. Now, I know there's going to be a so that. And I'm anticipating the so that would be so he can provide for himself and his family. Wouldn't that make sense to you? Quit stealing to provide. You work to provide for your family. But that's not what Paul says. Because he gets this generosity agenda. Here's what he says. Let the thief no longer steal, but rather let him labor, doing honest work with his own hands. You ready for the so that? So that he may have something to share with anyone in need. Do you get it? Work with your hands, not first so you have money. Work with your hands so you have the wherewithal to give. Listen, if the Church of Jesus Christ across the world would buy into that generosity agenda, there would be no end to what we could do. Work so you can give. 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 I saw this passage. And confessed years of getting it wrong. I've talked about Luella. She's always had just this innate understanding of this. Even though I don't know if we've ever specifically, in the early years of marriage, ever talked about this passage. Very young in ministry, we were very poor. I mean, poor. And we often didn't know whether we were going to have food for the next meal. One time, Luella was in a panic. She didn't think we had anything for breakfast, and she found frozen peaches, the only thing in the freezer, and the makings for biscuits. And she made biscuits and frozen peaches for breakfast. Our kids thought that was the dopest meal ever. And they wanted to have frozen peaches and biscuits every day. Isn't God good? Well, in this impoverished period of time, We got $100 in the mail, unexpected. I'll never forget seeing that $100 check. I opened that envelope, and before the check was in my hand, I had spent it 15 different ways. I said, Luella, look what's come. Excited to discuss with her what we could do with it. And she said, these are my words, something along these lines, Paul, God's been so gracious in providing for us, and I think he's going to provide for us tomorrow. Why don't we find somebody who needs this money and give it to them or buy groceries for them? I thought, I've got proof now my wife is from Mars. But she was right. Her heart immediately went to, how can we be part of God's generosity with what he's provided for us? Here's the agenda that is in Ephesians 4:28. God makes his invisible generosity visible by sending generous people to provide generously for people who desperately need that generosity. There's gospel money.